Yo, what's up, fam? You know what it is, man. It's your boy, Sebastian Sanders. You already know what it is, man. We back, episode 4. Man, can y'all believe we are 4 episodes in? Man, real quick, before we even get into this episode, the Monday Mondays came from, I was doing this stuff in my car, man. Let me tell you a story. So, I graduated college in 2019. I moved to Oklahoma City. So, I came out of Texas, born and raised in Houston, Texas, but I went to school in San Antonio. I graduated, moved to Oklahoma City, a whole new state, and my first thing was like content. Because my best friend, my roommate, Mike, man, shout out to Mike, man, it's a real brother for me. He used to record all my content. And back then, like, I was so afraid of doing content on my phone because I was so quality focused. And I didn't realize, like, man, iPhones literally are just some really good cameras, to be quite honest with you. And so, honestly, I didn't even see myself as a content creator at the time. I don't even like calling myself that, to be quite honest with you. So I didn't realize, like, man, I had to figure this out because I'm not going to have all the connects that I have, and so I may have to find people. It's probably going to take me some time, but on a day-to-day basis, I'm starting over. I'm starting a new career, and so all the connections that I had in San Antonio, I'm not going to have in Oklahoma City. So I said, man, you got to start talking, man. You got to get in front of people and start talking. And I had somebody tell me, like, man, like, I had posted like a selfie or something one day. Somebody's like, man, you have a really nice voice and a nice face. Like, people want to see that more. And I was like, man, that inspired me. And I think I'm a handsome guy. I think I look good. So I always knew I had it. But it's like sometimes you just kind of need that external push to say, okay, hey, go out and do it. And so I started doing the videos in my car. And then at this time, I was getting booked to do a lot of speaking engagements. Like, I think I start finally getting paid for them. And I was like, man, I got a gift at this. And a lot of times, like, I was just speaking off the top of my head raw and getting in front of thousands of people. And so I started doing videos in my car, motivational videos. And I don't know where I got the name from. We started calling them Monday Mondays. And they were in a car. They used to be like 5 minutes long. People was actually watching them, messaging me like, hey, you inspired me. And so I said, we had something here. And I met this girl in Oklahoma City. She was a radio host. Me and her had an event together. And I was like, I kind of pitched it to her. I said, hey, kind of shot my shot. I said, hey, like, can we get this on the station? Like, a 15-minute segment. And she like, let me reach out to my guy, program manager. He was like, yeah. We did like a few episodes, but I think the pandemic hit, and then they had a change in their programming, so we had to stop. But it showed me like, hey, you got something here if a radio is willing to pick it up in a whole new state. And then one of my mentors, C.W. Shannon, he got me connected with his bank at the time. He's the CEO of the bank, and they were loving it, so they wanted to do some content around it. But then the pandemic hit and all that. So God and the universe was telling me like, hey, you got something here. And so over the years, we were doing it in a car, but then I paused and I started to do like little episodes here and there, but I wasn't consistent. But then I trademarked it. I trademarked Monday Mondays in 2021. And I always tell people, like, I got a trademark, so if I catch somebody using it, we will be calling you. We will be suing. But I do have a trademark to use for what I use it for. And I was like, man, like, for years I was sitting on the idea, but I just didn't know, like, what I wanted to do with it. And we have long-term plans, but I was trying to do the long-term plans first. And I was like, man, God kept saying, just go out and do it. Just start it, get the content out. And I was like, I don't want to do a regular podcast. I don't want to just interview people all day, right? I like to be interviewed and I like to support others. I was trying to find something that was more of me and what I stand for. And I was like, man, just do a real talk business show. Like the same thing I would do in a car, but just doing it in a business format, helping people because I professionally teach, youth business all across the world. Let's just do it for the masses and put it out there, for free, and let's just grow with it. And so that's what we're doing here. And we got some really good things we're cooking. But I always like to tell people, man, this has been something I've been working on for 5 years. And so I got it trademarked and I finally got the podcast. And we did merchandise for like a few months. I had sold some sweaters. And so I kept doing stuff, but there was no consistency with it. That's because I didn't understand my vision at the time. But God had to really, sit me down and show me the vision. So we're here today. So we're 4 episodes in, man. We're kicking the season off with a bang. The season 1 probably run for like a few more episodes, and then we're gonna drop season 2 later this fall. So let's get right into it. You know how I do it, man. I always start with a quote. God is the source, not the economy, not your job. This is Psalms 43. God is going to do some new things in your life. And this is from Joel Osteen. I attended his New Year's service earlier this year. Huge Joel Osteen fan. And he kept saying, God is the source, not the economy, not your job. And it hit home because, we're living in times right now, the economy is not the best. It's been like that for a while now. And in my industry, there's a lot of funding opportunities being cut. There's a lot of things going on, when it comes down to grants and things like that. And the economy may say this may not be the best for somebody to donate or a grant to come through for your organization. But, God says differently. and we had an amazing year. We had our biggest year last year with the economy the way it is. And so I realized, like, man, you got to have some type of faith in whatever you're trying to do. But God is the ultimate answer, right? Yeah, things are going on outside. Your job may say, okay, hey, we're going to shut down and we're going to, let you go in a few weeks. But ultimately, God is the source. And if you think of life like that, he will always provide for you. And he's always going to come through. Even when it's dark and it's misty and you don't understand, God is always going to provide and come through. So with that being said, today's episode is how do you apply for a grant for your business? And I'm going to use some AI stuff in here. I'm going to show you how to use AI to training to help you, apply for grants. But today is about where is the money. So the first thing is I want to ask you, where's the money? Where's the money in your industry? If people are getting funding, whether that's a nonprofit or for-profit entity, if they're getting funding, where's the money? Do you know who's the biggest donors? Do you know who the big foundations are? Are you on their radar? Are you reaching out to them? Are you applying to the applications and the RFPs that they have out? If you're not doing any of that and you're complaining about funding, you do not need to be in business. Because I hate when people say, oh, I can't get no money. They're not giving out no money. And I ask them, so who's getting funding in your area? Well, you know what? I don't know. Who's the biggest donor? Oh, I don't know. Or who's the VCs in my area? No, I don't know. You're not doing enough research. You're quickly giving up because you got a few no's. You're going to get 1,000 no's before you get that one yes. And that's just straight up in business. So you have to lock in and ask yourself, where's the money? Grants equals free money that you do not have to pay back. But most people miss out because they're fishing in the wrong pond. I'm not a big fisher. I used to go fishing as a kid, occasionally, but I'm not a fisher, right? But I use this term in business because if I know there's a bunch of catfish over here, but for some reason I want to go down here when I know it ain't nothing but some turtles, and I'm mad like I can't get no fish. Why are you down there with the turtles when the fish is over here? That's the same thing in business. If you know they're giving out money over here in this industry or in this lane or for this specific thing, but you're not tapping into that funding, but you're getting mad because you're saying there's no funding out here, you're not going where the people are already at. And so the lesson is if you want to catch a fish, you have to know where the fish are. You have to use the right bait. The right bait is going to be your value proposition. The right bait is going to be what's going to separate you from the next person, right? So let's get right into it. Where's the money? Find your lane and stay in it. Don't search blindly. Target your niche. What is your business about? Who do you serve? And what problem do you solve? So let's get right into it. You already know I love this board, and I want to give you guys an example. So if I want to find the money, and let's say I'm going to start a business, a healthcare business. And I think I might have spelled that wrong, but y'all get what I'm trying to say. So, healthcare business, and we have a product. We have men's beard oil, something like that, right? We're just making up a business, right? What is my business about? If I know my business is about healthcare, then boom, it's healthcare. And that's going to be important, right? Who do you serve? We got it. We serve men. And we can do women. We can do women's, let's say women's hair gel, something like that, right? So we have two different products. We're in the healthcare field. We identified who do we serve, men and women. And then my next question is, what problem are you solving? So healthcare problems, you can just say, I'm creating a new innovative product. Innovative product that's affordable. Man, I have some of the worst handwriting, so y'all bear with me. So these are the basic businesses questions, and then here are a few example niches. So the reason why I created a quick example for you because I always like to show you guys what it looks like in real time. And here's some examples: a youth education. If I started a youth education business and I'm searching for grants, I need to search youth entrepreneurship grants. So I will go on Google youth entrepreneurship grants. I will probably do in my state because it's a lot easier to get funding locally that's around you because most donors kind of want to touch with their funding. So I would do youth entrepreneurship grants in Texas. If I'm starting a beauty brand, we just said we're going to start a healthcare business. I need to search black-owned beauty business grants near me, right? I would do that in Texas. So I would do black-owned beauty business grants. And then let's say, okay, I want to remove the black-owned part and I just want to do straight business grants, beauty business grants, because ultimately black-owned there's funding out there, but it may not be as much. So if you remove that, you can find way more funding, especially if you don't have a black-owned business, right? And so I would look that up. And if I want to get into tech startup and I want to say grants for startups in AI or software, I would do the same thing. So basically, I would take whatever my business is and I would search it. So if we're going to start this healthcare business and we're trying to find grants or opportunities to get some funding, I'm going to go on Google, healthcare grants, and let's say I live in Oklahoma. I would put Oklahoma. So I would put healthcare grants in Oklahoma, and then I would search that. And then what I would do is, let's say you come up with 5 opportunities. What I would go back and do is I would put on a Google search or Google notification every week. I would get that notification in, and I would get those grants coming in to my email. So I would say every 2 weeks I would get that in, and then I would use that as a way to stay on the fresh opportunities, right? You want to use Google with specific terms. 2024 small business grants for healthcare in Oklahoma, right? Remember, we're starting a healthcare business. So, and right here, guys, I put this content here. It's going to be right here for the episode. That way you can see and follow along with me. But you want to be very specific in your search, right? You don't want to just be typing in healthcare grants. They're going to pull up a whole bunch of stuff. And some of that stuff may be out of your criteria. You got to understand that grants can be, they have to be subject to your business. So if I'm a small to medium-sized business and I'm only making like $100,000 or even less, then I don't need to be applying for grants that are looking for $1 million businesses, because I'm going to get denied ultimately. So you have to be strategic and you have to be smart when you're applying for these grants, because you got to know exactly what you're looking for when you're applying, right? So if I'm a business, I'm gonna type in 2024 or 2025, I should say, small business grants for healthcare in Oklahoma, and I would be very specific with it. I will figure out, okay, how much dollar amount are they willing to give out. Sometimes micro grants are kind of the best way to go, and then I would just build from there. And then you want to look at who's winning. And so this is something that I had to learn over the years. Like, I used to be the person that complained about grants. I used to hate grants. Like, I'm not even gonna lie to y'all. Like, I went to this conference in Atlanta. It was the Black Nonprofit Conference a few years ago, and I was talking to a guy. He lived in Vegas. He's like, man, I get grants like crazy. And I used to be so bitter. I used to be a hater. I was like, man, I hate grants. I was like, I'd rather just create a product or a service. He looked at me. He's like, man, you tripping, bro. He's like, man, it's so much money that you can get out there for your programs and for your students. You just gotta apply. And at the time, I really didn't understand how to apply. And I really didn't even know how to search for grants. And to be quite honest with you, we really didn't have a product or a service that was worth giving out, because at the time, I don't think I had the Young Billionaires Club. I think it was an idea, but it wasn't even well put together. It was just an idea. So it was like, how do I even apply for something with a basic idea? And I remember that was in 2022, I want to say, maybe 2021. About a year or so later, when I fully stepped into the organization full time and I started to really scale and grow, I realized, grants are not just giving a grant to do certain things. Sometimes you get grants to do a program here and there. Sometimes you get grants for building out an office for rent. So I was like, man, there's so many things that we can do with these grants. I just had to be very specific in my search, and I had to figure out, if I'm teaching kids financial literacy, why am I applying for grants that are applying to other things that don't even go back to our mission? Because I'm going to get denied, right? And so I had to figure out, okay, I got to go fish where people are fishing at, and I got to go get to the funding that makes sense for me. So I had to, Instagram, LinkedIn, grant websites. I'm looking at other big financial organizations that are servicing kids, and I'm looking at, okay, how are they getting funding? And for nonprofits, all of this information is free. You can go to your local library. You can get, I think it's candid.gov, and you can actually see who's getting funding and who funded it. You can go to every foundation's website. You can see their annual reports, and you can see who's giving out the money. And then once you look at that, you're saying, okay, hey, this organization got money from here. I'm going to go to their website. I'm going to look at, RFP or call for proposal. When are they going to put those applications out? Put it on my calendar, put it on my phone as a reminder. If that application opens up May 1st, 2025, I already have it in my phone. And I try to do that quarterly. I try to have 20 to 30 grants quarterly that's already on my radar that I can apply for, because grants is a variable thing. So if you apply for 5 and you get denied for 5, then you look at it I'm a failure, or I didn't succeed. But ultimately, the more grants you apply for, you give yourself a higher chance. So let's say, you're hitting 100 per quarter. Out of that 100, 10% of those may hit, and 10% of those may hit, and they may get you a 6-figure grant funding. They may get you a $250,000 worth of budgeting that you needed, right? And so it's all about numbers. It's a numbers thing. You cannot apply for 3 grants and expect to get all 3, and then you get mad when you don't get them. It's ridiculous. It don't make sense, right? And so I had to learn that, because every year I was applying for 5 grants maximum. For 4 years, with me having a legal nonprofit, I was only applying for 5 grants maximum per year. And I get mad that I didn't get 2 out of the 5, or I didn't get 4 out of the 5. And I'm mad. I'm throwing fits. I don't like grants. Ridiculous. I didn't set myself up. I didn't set my business up. And I ultimately didn't set the kids that I want to serve to succeed, because I'm not doing my due diligence and doing research. You have to do market research when you're trying to apply for a grant. So to sum it up, You need to find your lane. You need to figure out, okay, where's the money coming from? What is my niche? What is my industry? Do some research. Google, you can use chat, GPT, you can go on LinkedIn, you can go on these different websites, you can go on foundation websites, look up all those big organizations. When they say, hey, we giving out this grant, you see people with chicks, go to their website, look at their community involvement, look at their community engagement, and then from there you start to build out a timeline of when to apply. So that's that. Next, I want you to learn how to teach Chat GPT to write like you. Now, I'm not saying to use that to apply for our grants. What I'm saying is, in the beginning, you kind of need some templates and you need somebody to support you, because when you're first starting off, you may not have the budget to go out and hire somebody to write grants for you. You know, grant writers are expensive, and that's because sometimes the best grant writers give you a lot of money, so they're going to be expensive, and you may not have that in your budget. I know for me, for 5 years, we didn't have it. You know, when I was in college, we didn't have the budget to go out and get a grant writer. And I'll never forget, I met this lady. She was a grant writer for a nonprofit in San Antonio, and she was like, Sebastian, just apply to HEB. She was like, HEB funds, they have a really good community program, and she was like, you know, you may not get a lot, but she like, if you build a relationship with them, they will support you, and as you grow the organization, they'll grow with you. And I never forget, she's like, you don't need a grant writer, because in my head, I'm like, man, I need to pay somebody. She's like, you have the money for a grant writer? I was like, no, ma'am. She's like, well, you go do it yourself. So I had to teach myself how to write grants, and so over the years, I was writing these grants myself. And then you know, AI came in. I said, okay, hey, this is how I've been doing it for years. Let me teach chat how to write like me. And now I have a copycat version of me that's going to streamline me applying for these grants. And so, like I said, you don't want to do it for everything, because, you know, they do give generic statements at times. And when you're applying for a grant, it's really good to be very personable with the grant. Like, you know, people want to know, like, hey, and I'm not saying on a personal level. What I'm saying is you want to be a person that's actually typing in the information, because they're going to ask you analytics, data, how do you measure success, all that good stuff. So you want to know how to word that in your grant application. So you don't need to be a pro writer, just be very strategic. You want to start with a prompt, right? So you want to act as the founder of a business. Write a grant application for a program that serves your target audience with your services. So I'm going to go over here to the board. I'm going to show you what that means, right? So let's say I'm the founder of this healthcare business. So what I'm going to type in the chat, it says, founder of healthcare business. And we're going to go back to this. You want to write an application. And instead of writing an application, we'll write a proposal. Write a proposal for funding for men's oil, women's gel. And so you want to type that in the chat, but also before you do that, you also want to give chat a brief summary or bio about your business. So it's also important that you be very transparent and you give them as much information as you can. Because if I go in there and say, hey, write me a proposal for a healthcare business for men's oil and women's gel, they don't know anything about my business. They're going to create something very generic, right? And it's not going to get you past, in the application process. So you want to be very strategic, but you also want to be very detailed and informational. So before I even do that, I want to give chat my bio first. So before you do that, give them your bio. Then you create the scenario, or you create the template right here. So these are some tips to get you better results. You want to tell ChatGPT your mission, your story, your audience, and your goals, right? Kind of going back to what I said about the bio. Before you really kind of get into them creating a proposal for you, tell them about your mission. Tell them about, how long you've been doing it. Tell them about, how many sales. Give them all that information. You want to act like Chat is the grant person itself, right? You want to give them all the information you can. You use real data of people served, testimonials, program details. So if you don't have this information, go out and collect it. So if you have data, if you have analytics to show, if you have some surveys, if you have I served 1,000 people in my business last year, I sold 1,000 products, and I sold 1,000, and my target audience was located in the West Coast or the East Coast. You want to be very, transparent in that. And then you want to ask it to generate answers for common grant questions. So here are a few. What impact does your business have? I would say you will probably get this 75% of the time, because when they're giving you funding, they want to know the impact, because how does that impact benefit us? How does that add value to what we're trying to do as a company? How will you use the funds? This is important. It's very important that you already have budgets, templates already prepared. So for us as a nonprofit organization, I have to have a budget template for my program. For whether that's a full year, whether that's a 6 to 8 week program, I have different budgets set out, already set to the side. So when I do go through these grants and they're saying, hey, how much money do you need? We have allocated $10,000 for this grant. I can say, hey, my program lasts 6 to 8 weeks. We need $10,000, $15,000 for that, right? And so I had these budget proposals already together. I would say put these budgets in Excel, and then I would have another one in the PDF format, right? And I would just use those intertwine. Who is your target demographic? This goes back into marketing. This goes back into really knowing your business, right? Before I even try to apply for a grant, who is my target audience? Because they're going to ask, like, your target demographic, who is that? How do you serve them? And why are you serving them? Because it's important to understand the why behind why do you want to serve impoverished communities, right? What are the analytics? What is the household income in that area? And so you need to know these things, and you don't need to know necessarily all of the numbers off the top of your head just like that, but you want to have a good idea of what your demographic looks like, because that's how you articulate the story. A key to a successful grant is really having a story that goes behind it. So for example, right, if I'm going to start this healthcare business for women and men, what is the story? Like, what is going to be something that resonates on a personal level? So I would, definitely go through chat. I would go through all of this, give them the bio, give them the information, generate those answers to those questions. But I would generate some type of story. And your story can be, we want to provide men and women that come from this side of town with affordable things that's going to help preserve their health for long term so they can live a better long life, right? You want to kind of create something along those lines. But then if I'm going to create that story, how does that story add value to what that company is trying to do? So when you do create that storyline, it has to tie to your mission, but it also ties back to that company as well. And if it doesn't fit, if my story doesn't fit with this company's values, then this may not be a good fit. Every grant you shouldn't be applying for. You don't have to always apply to every grant. It may not always be a good fit for you. Yeah, you're turning down some money, but you got to find things that fit, because ultimately if you do get that reward and you do get that funding, does those things match up? Because you want to create an opportunity to where I don't just get grant 1 year. I want to have money coming in year after year. Our biggest partner has been HEB. HEB had been serving Sanders hands since 2017. I mean, they started that off when we were just a bunch of college kids, and they have grown with us since then. And that's because our story resonated with what they want to do, which is their community values, but the story tied back to both of our missions, and they can see the real-time impact. They can see where the money is going, and they understand our demographic that we're trying to serve needs our program and our services. So with that being said, if I'm creating this story, it needs to have values, a mission that goes back to your business and the grantor. You got to think, guys, you can have something really good, but if it doesn't tie back to who's giving you the money, it's going to be hard for them to cut that check, right? So, or, we just talked about, Chat GPT writing it for you, or you can go the traditional way, which is hire a grant writer. And this is a smart hustle, right? For me, I look at it like this. The reason I'm showing you both options, because some of y'all may have the funding to say, hey, I don't really want to use chat. I don't like it. I'm going to go out and give me a grant writer, right? Some of y'all, majority of us start off, we don't really have a lot of funding. So it's like, I got to do everything on my own and teach myself the way. So I want to present to you both opportunities, because you may be in both A or you may be in both B. So if you don't have time, hire help. And I have got to the point to now where I do, outsource some grants. Like I do majority of the grants myself, but I do outsource some of the year because I just don't have time for it. And we've been blessed to have the extra capabilities and resources to bring in freelance workers. So the easiest way to go about this, you want to search platforms like Fiverr or Upwork. Upwork is, to be honest, I don't think I've seen too many on there, but Fiverr has some good grant writers on there. The biggest thing about grant writing is, guys, they're not guaranteeing you that they're going to get you the money, but they're just applying on your behalf. So you have to keep that in mind, right? So you can't bring in a person and pay them a whole bunch of money and you get mad at them because they didn't get none of the grants. You got to understand it's a 50-50 chance. They get it or they don't, right? And so you have to understand that it's a variable, it's a risk. So take a calculated risk, right? I don't need to invest $100,000 into a grant writer if my organization hasn't even won 1 or 2 grants, because we haven't even won anything. And we're going to put up a lot of our money and our overhead just to get a grant person in. And let's say they're not successful. That's money that's gone down the drain. Plus, we're not even getting grants. So the money's kind of gone. We don't even see that money anymore. So think of it like that. You have to take a calculated risk. Or you can find grant consultants. You can hire as needed for X amount of dollars. For what I do is I bring in a consultant and I say, hey, Q2 is coming up. I need $100,000 in funding. Can you apply for 10 grants, right? And they give me their fixed rate. We go back and forth. We negotiate a deal that works for both parties. And then they go in and do their work, and I make sure they submit to me all of the information, the documentation. We have Zoom calls. We have calls about the grants. And then I get the deadlines on my calendar. Hey, this deadline is coming up, and these are the day that the decision will be made, and I know if I got the grant or not. And so that's kind of how I go about building out when I hire a grant consultant, that's how we work together. You don't want to hire them and then you're so hands off on it. Like, I'm one of them people, like, I'm not a micromanager, but I like to know what's going on, because if I'm paying you, I need to know, when is this decision coming up? How much money are we applying for? And I need to know, hey, if we got it or not. I don't want to just say, hey, 5 months down the road, hey, did we get those grants? And then you send me a report. No, I want to be walking with that person hands on. And I think as an executive, as a CEO, fundraising is something that you're always going to have to do, whether that's fundraising through the traditional way, which is grants and events, or that's you just having a personal brand and you're doing content and you're speaking about your business. You always want to have a connection with your audience, and you always want to have a connection with whoever you're fundraising with, because you want to be hands-on about your business. You want to know where the money is going. You want to know where the money coming in or where the money is going out. So that's very important. Here are a few things you need to look for when you're hiring a grant person. Verify reviews. Now, these platforms, they do have 5-star reviews. Sometimes you have a bunch of them. I go through these, I vet them. I'm a Fiverr Pro client, so I've been on Fiverr for like 6 years. I'm one of the top rated buyers. So when I'm on there, I'm looking at premium services and I'm trying to figure out, like, hey, are these bot reviews or these actual real reviews? And I always say, hey, can you send me your success rate? Can you send me a case study? They can't legally give you a grant application, but sometimes they can give you some public information. So I like to ask, like, hey, can I see that? Because I want to see I want to see your work. I want to see if this is a good fit, because I can easily go out and hire anybody, but is that person a good fit? Have you worked with youth services, right? What I told you guys, we are a nonprofit, a global nonprofit that provides youth services. I need to know, have you worked with youth service grants before? Because if you haven't, then I'm already risking it with you, but then I'm even taking a higher risk because you haven't even applied for grants in this category. So be very strategic on how you get people, samples, industry experience. You ideally want to find people in your niche. If I know this grant person is better at for-profit companies and raising money through venture capitalists, I should not be knocking on their door knowing I'm a nonprofit, because I'm bringing them in a world that they have never been in before. And then I'm mad at them at the end of the year because I done paid you a lot of money and I haven't got any money back. It's a risk, like I said, but at the same time, it's a bigger risk because they don't even do nonprofit work. So you got to be very strategic on how you go about these things, because at the end of the day, it's not cheap to bring in a grant person. So you want to spend your money the right way. And here's a pro tip: you want to have a rough draft ready using ChatGPT to save time and cut costs when hiring. So I want to have my proposal already ready. Say, hey, I'm going to bring you in to apply for $100,000 of funding, but this is my basic proposal that I send out, and this is what I apply with. Use that as a blueprint to give them, because if you just say, hey, I need you to apply for these grants, and they don't know anything about your programs, they don't know anything about your products or your services, and you're bringing them in and you're expecting them to raise a bunch of money when they don't even have that connection, and they may not even be virtually in your area, you want to send them some annual reviews. You want to send them some customer reviews. You want to send them a template or a proposal to say, hey, this is what you can use to build that blueprint. Give your grant person something to work with. Don't just put them in a room and say, apply for these grants, and then you get mad when you didn't give them no ammo to go with. So be very, mindful of that, because this person may not necessarily be a full-time person within your organization. Now, if this is somebody that you've been hiring for year after year, then y'all have built a relationship. They probably understand. They understand the cadence and the rhythm with the organization. But if this is somebody that's new that you're going with, you're going to have to walk with them every step of the way until y'all feel comfortable with one another and what you're trying to achieve. So here, I want to say is you want to set some type of monthly and a quarterly grant plan. Consistency wins. You can't apply for 5 grants this year and then get mad that you don't get them and then don't apply for anything next year. Don't be me. I spent 5 years barely applying, getting mad and not doing stuff, just doing stuff all over the place and missing out on a lot of opportunity and funding to serve more kids. Don't do it that way. Consistency wins. Even when I lose, I'm still showing up. Even if I get 10 denies, you're going to see me go out and get 10 more, because I have a mission. I got kids I need to serve. I have staff I need to serve. And I have a goal that I want to grow my organization. So build a simple grant plan. Research 3 grants a month. And this is just a low number, but you can do 3 a month. I mean, you're on TikTok all day looking up recipes, you on Instagram looking at everybody's pictures, liking stuff. You can jump on Google and you can jump on the internet and find 3 grants a month. Set a timeline to do it. Every Monday or every second Monday of the year, of the month, I'm on there, I'm looking at grants. So put it on your calendar. Research 3 new grant opportunities. Apply to 2 to 5 grants per month. Try to be very aggressive when you're applying. And most of these grants, sometimes, like if you're starting off, they're micro grants, the application process may not be that long. And to be honest, a lot of times they're streamlining the grants to where you don't even have to spend hours on them. Now, the big ones, yeah, you're gonna spend some time on them, but for the most part, medium to small size grants, they're not that long of an application. So, like I said, if you can scroll all day, you can play on TikTok all day and dance all day on social media, you can go out and apply for some grants for your business. So try to apply to at least 2 to 5 per month. Track these submissions in the spreadsheet. Just like I said, I have an Excel sheet where I track my stuff and I color code it. So if everything that's in the orange, it's like I haven't got an answer yet, and then everything in the red is a denial, everything is in the green. You want to reuse and refine application materials. Set a grant monthly goal. I want to have $10,000 per month or grant funding this quarter. And my last thing I want to say is don't just hustle, plan and apply. Stop all the side hustle stuff. Plan, apply, be strategic, and fish where your lane swims. You got to see it to believe it. This is how to win a grant for your business. Part 2 is coming soon.